All right, let's get more reaction to the story. We speak to Cas Coovadia, who is BUSA CEO. Good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. President Cyril Ramaphosa says that this is a time of a rise in geopolitical tensions, debt for vulnerable countries, unilateralism, yet also he believes that this is a time when nations should be working together. And when you look at the report by the World Economic Forum as well, it says global cooperation levels have flatlined. How much of a concern is this for business?
Well, it is. Firstly, just let me clarify. I'm here at the B20 Sherpa. I am not a BUSA any longer, but be that as it may. I think global cooperation is critical. So even for the B20, our theme is inclusive growth, prosperity in a cooperating and collaborative world. So I think that global cooperation is critical, particularly given the current geopolitical fractures and fissures we have in many parts of the world. South Africa has always taken the view that we need to cooperate and collaborate to actually ensure that we grow our economies in an inclusive way and address the challenges that certainly our country has and the continent has. And so that is critical and it's very important, and also through the B20 we intend to promote that and to actually elaborate on that.
And how far have we gone when you look at South Africa, for example? Because you listen to the president, he says that when he's asked at the tail end there that why invest in South Africa, he mentions the energy crisis and that South Africa has dealt with this, and says that there's also progress when it comes to addressing the issues around the economy, and also speaks about a partnership between business, government as well as labor that he says looks to be, quite sustainable going into the future. How much would you say South Africa has traversed in terms of ensuring that it addresses some of these investor concerns?
I think we've made tremendous progress in the last 2 years or so. The business-government partnership has worked very well. We don't have load shedding anymore. We've made good progress in implementing the president's energy plan, and there's been significant private sector generation of energy in the last year or two, and there will be more. So we're developing a more diverse energy market and a more diverse production of energy, and that must continue. I think that we also making progress on the logistics side. The partnership again is beginning to show progress in that, and given that the partnership on government side is driven by the president, and on business side by critical CEOs, and we meet every 6 to 8 weeks to track progress. That's worked very well. Also, I think that what's gone down very well, and I heard your correspondent talk about that, is that the government of national unity is holding, and is actually demonstrating that South Africa is a mature democracy, where the ANC, and kudos to the ANC for this, after the election accepted the result and actually started the process to look at a government of national unity, and the parties in the government of national unity are putting national interests above party political interests. And that is going down well with investors. It's actually instilled more confidence in the country. It's showing investors that we are stable. Our indices are going in the right direction, interest rates going down, inflation going down. We're making very good progress in addressing some of the issues with FETF and our grey listing. So I think that the indications are very good at the moment, and we have a big delegation at Davos, and I think we are more together this year than we have been in previous years. And so I'm very optimistic. Business is very optimistic.
And I wonder then how much of a concern is this issue of debt? Because when you look at it, for example, in part as well, you do have some of these vulnerable countries who are not defaulting, but they certainly are being charged exorbitant interests, especially when you look at some of the economies that they're using a bulk of their own income and what would have been their own money to be able to sustain the citizens to repay this debt. How much of a concern is that, particularly when you look at what's happening globally?
No, it is a concern. And I think that one of the things we need to achieve, at Davos and through the G20 and the B20. I think what we've got to achieve is we need a fresh discussion on emerging market risk and its assessment. I was at an investor conference in Cape Town toward the end of last year, hosted by 91. And there, I was very happy that a number of investors actually indicated that they actually make decisions on risk issues in emerging nations without knowing too much about the environment in those nations. And I think that we, as the emerging nations, and certainly given that we're hosting the G20 and the B20 as South Africa, we need to actually start and re-energize a debate that says emerging nations, and if you look at sub-Saharan Africa, 6 of the fastest growing economies in the world are in sub-Saharan Africa. You can't just take the view that these are nations and economies that are extremely risky and therefore there needs to be a risk premium.
Yeah.
Good reasons need to be for that. So I think that it's an important issue, and I think we need to drive a debate that actually looks at what is considered when a risk premium is put on emerging nations and how we actually change that narrative.
And I suppose a new approach as well, also looking at environmental risks, for example, and preventing them from reaching a point of no return, as we're seeing extreme weather patterns as well that continue to be a challenge when it comes to global economies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what's happening in the globe currently, the Ukraine crisis, some nations in the economies in the north becoming protectionist in their approach. We've seen indications from President Trump that America might consider pulling out of the Paris Accord. These are all very, very worrying issues. And we must ensure, as countries in the South, and we are the 4th country in the South that's hosting the B20 and the G20 before we hand over to America, we must ensure that we insist on a level playing field and the same standards to be used for countries in the South as are used for countries in the North. So if countries in the North are saying they are having difficulty in meeting some of the targets, or if some countries in the North are reconsidering agreements that have already been reached, then they mustn't put pressure on the South to meet the targets. I think that we need to work together, and that's where collaboration comes in, so that all countries are treated with the same standards, with the same approach, and there's a level playing field between the North and the South.
All right. So, Mr. Coovadia, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking to us. That's, in fact, Cas Coovadia there, who's with B20, speaking to us just about what President Cyril Ramaphosa has had to say around, some of the things that are being done by the country to attract investment. And he speaks about the fact that dealing with issues like corruption as well is also top priority for this country. So we'll continue then to monitor the developments at the World Economic Forum. You saw Tsepo Mongwa is also there, and bring you a lot more from that.